It's tough to say. Will a prosecutor try to argue that maybe even entering into the other team's tent in the first place was starting the incident? They might try to argue
Maybe
that.
he's a trespasser. He's in the wrong,
Maybe
something
there's,
like that.
I think it's a weak argument, but maybe it's an argument. But to respond to, hey man, you got to leave our tent, which is a valid request, with touch me and see what happens, or punch me and see what happens, that sounds like fighting words to me. It sounds like legally relevant provocation, which could lead a prosecutor to argue to the judge, they shouldn't even get a self-defense instruction because the subsection of that statute says that they don't get one if they started the confrontation.
Yeah, you don't automatically get to argue self-defense. I mean, you have the burden of production. If you are going to bring a self-defense claim, you got to offer some evidence. You don't automatically get a self-defense jury instruction.
Could you imagine if they take away his self-defense? Could you imagine if they get to court and the judge just say, this isn't a self-defense trial. This doesn't meet the standard. Oh my God. Niggas might burn something down, man. Foot Locker, goddamn, AutoZone, some shit getting burnt down, man. Fuck, man. They say that shit. If they say, wait a second, hold on, nigga. What you thought you just get to come in here and say? Nah, it has to be. The facts got to say self-defense. This is not a self-defense case. It's just a murder case. Yo, oh my God. I hate. I don't want to see that for what it's going to do to the country, but I just want to laugh, man. I just want to see the look on Dominique Alexander face when the judge say that. I want to see the look on Dominique face, man. Just no. This is just a murder case. This is not a self-defense case. This doesn't meet the burden for self-defense. This is just a homicide case. But it does make sense because if it was like that, anybody could just say self-defense. Like you could just say self-defense anytime you kill somebody. Every person who ever killed somebody could say self-defense. Think about it. Every homicide involving like street people or savvy people from the streets, every homicide would be a self-defense if that was the case. Because everybody would say, oh yeah, self-defense. Yeah, I was defending myself. Yeah. But every homicide is not self-defense. Very rarely do we see homicides good self-defense. And that's why. Because there's a burden. The facts have to, you can't, it ain't just your word that say it was a self-defense. You don't just get to break in somebody's house and they wake up and shit and you shoot them and be like, oh yeah, I was defending myself because, I didn't know nobody was going to be home. So, you know what I'm saying? Self-defense. And then we got to try you as, nah, man, it ain't like that. This is going to be hilarious, man. Oh my God, this is going to be hilarious.
Punch me and see what happens. That sounds like fighting words to me. It sounds like legally relevant provocation, which could lead a prosecutor to argue to the judge, they shouldn't even get a self-defense instruction because the subsection of that statute says that they don't get one if they started the confrontation.
Yeah, you don't automatically get to argue self-defense. I mean, you have the burden of production. If you are going to bring a self-defense claim, you got to offer some evidence. You don't automatically get a self-defense jury instruction. And you may have enough here. And these are generally liberally handed out by judges because judges are savvy enough to know that if they don't give a self-defense instruction in a case and they get convicted and the case is appealed to a court of appeals and that court of appeals says, there was enough here. And I think there's enough here already just because Mr. Anthony made the initial statement to the police officer, I was protecting myself. He put his hands on me. I think you're there just with that statement coming in. That's enough. And so I think he's going to get his self-defense jury instruction.
A good judge would err on the side of giving the instruction and turning it over to the jury.
But then when you put it along with, punch me and see what happens, touch me and see what happens, and you happen to know you brought a knife along to the track meet, the high school track meet, where there's certainly, forget about the fact that the knives aren't even allowed on the school property. Forget the fact that under Texas law, it might be illegal because knives, I understand, that are over 5.5 inches, that the blade is longer than that, might be illegal in Texas. There might be something you need to do to get that kind of a knife. I haven't looked into it that far, but forget about all that. Imagine you legally brought a knife. You got a knife sitting in your bag, And now you are provoking somebody to punch me and see what happens. It almost looks like you want to stab the guy. You want to get into this kind of a fight. Certainly doesn't endear him to a jury. It's not going to make a jury say, we really feel bad for this guy who brought the knife to school property and is now sort of taunting or provoking this other fellow after he then went in the tent to kind of start a discussion. You know, it's the other team's tent. You know, you're on a rival team. You know, somebody is probably going to say, hey, even if it's not, we need more space in our tent because there's people on our team who want to get out of the rain as well. But just because, you know, maybe we're talking strategy, or maybe we're having some discussion amongst how we're going to handle the next meet or something like that. We don't want you, the competition, sitting in our tent. I mean, you know, somebody is probably going to ask you to leave. I don't know how all this is going to play out, but none of it puts Mr. Anthony in a very sympathetic light for a jury.
Absolutely.